Another walk on the geek side where I am here with the lovable Sage.
Hello, Internet.
And our friend Skep seems to have gotten lost on the way to Mordor.
Well, you don't just walk in there, so
Yeah, true. Today we are discussing the differences between the book and the movie of Return of the King, which is the third installment of the series on the big screen, and the third part of the book.
Yes.
So, let me see here. Yeah, they had this bad habit to me of overlapping the two, the end of one part and the beginning of the other, instead of just having a clean break and then going, okay, we're going to start this from here.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that the last time. I actually feel like the third movie was better about it than the second, but I agree with you.
Yeah. I did watch the movie, so I got to compare the fact that, because I couldn't remember whether or not Pippin was awake. I know it's nitpicky, but whether he was awake for the 3-day ride or if he was in fact asleep, and he was. Gandalf did put him to sleep.
On and off, at least, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Pippin once again, proved to everybody that curiosity kills the cat, because he picked up the Palantir in the movie, at least, and got himself into a shit ton of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he does so in the book as well. That's not... Actually, the Palantir story is not super different from the book into the movie. It's really only how they get it in the first place that's changed, based upon Sarah. Oh, I see a Skep.
Yes, yep. I'm sorry I'm late. Please forgive me.
That's quite all right. We just talked about you getting lost in more. Yeah, the Palantir.
Women are always more forgiving than men. I do not forgive.
Yeah, nor do you forget, I'm sure.
Yeah, the Palantir story was pretty much beat for beat. I like the way they did that, and I like the interplay they had between Merry and Pippin. With Merry not being very happy with Pippin's, overactive curiosity streak.
No, he isn't in the book as well. Actually, like I said, in the very early part, let's do like we did last time and take the Western War story first, then go east, and then combine the stories at the end. That's how the books work. So I feel we can do that with a certain level of fairness. The beginning of the movie is actually fairly much like the book. I mean, there's obviously things that are missing. That are missing. Like, for instance, the scene in the whole story of Pippin and Merry's adventures with the orcs and the Ents and the siege of, if you want to call it that, the attack of Isengard is told after everyone has met up again in Isengard. But yes, it's a change, but again, it's one of those where I think you have to say they simply could not do that in a movie while maintaining a certain level of narrative execution.
Yep. Besides, they had them all meet back up in Isengard in the Two Towers movie.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the overlap was there, but I mean, if you look at the natural progression of the way I guess they wanted it on the big screen, you had the March of the Ents, and then you had everybody finding Merry and Pippin, all in the same movie to neatly wrap it up and bring them together with a nice, neat little bow.
Yeah. I mean, the first big change from movie to book comes, of course, the theatrical version. The theatrical version is actually in some ways closer to the book, in as much as it leaves Saruman and Wormtongue alive, even if it introduces a kind of a plot hole as to where the heck the Palantir is coming from. But I suppose the inference is that it was simply flushed out during the flooding. In the extended version, Saruman is killed on the top of Orthanc, which, by the way,
you're getting to a huge point that I think is very important. In the theatrical release, you don't get to see Saruman killed.
Nope. He basically survives the movies in the theatrical version, at least. By inference, when the movies are over, he's still sitting there guarded by Ents, one would assume. It's also, by the way, worth noticing that in the earlier movies, Orthanc is probably about as big as it is in the books. That means about close to 300 feet, or at least even more than 300 feet, I think. And Saruman is talking to Gandalf and Theoden from a tower, from a window and a balcony above the entrance. Here he's talking to them from the very top of the tower, which would have meant one heck of a shouting competition. But yes. I suppose that is why you have wizards. I suppose voice projection is one of those things we should just accept that they are capable of doing.
Many years ago, a rock group called the Jefferson Airplane was on the top of a 30-story building in Manhattan. Might have been Brooklyn. Anyway, it was New York City. And as loud as their music was, and they were a loud group, it was very comfortable listening at the street level. And they played kind of a mini concert till the police shut them down. So it's a famous thing if you know anything about the group. Anyway,
as was the style of the time.
As was the style of the times. So my point in saying that is that for him, and I think Orthanc was probably in the 500 to 600 foot range in terms of.
I think you're right. I think I misremembered with the 300 feet. Actually.
I believe it's about 600 feet. So that would make it about 55 stories. Okay, that would be almost twice as far as the Jefferson Airplane was able to project a Marshall stack down to and have people hear it. So to say that he was and inverse square law being what it is, okay, he would have had to have been he would have had been 4 times as loud as they were for double the height. Two squared being 4, and so he would have had to have shouted with shattering loudness for the speech to reach the base of Orthanc. So yeah, that's something that screamed at me.
Like I said, it's one of those things that are just a little bit silly. I understand why you would want them on the top because it's more dramatic. At the same time, it's like, why don't you just put them on a balcony? It doesn't matter.
Right.
But
I think in the book as well as the movie, I gotta go back and watch the movie again. In the book, they mention the voice of Saruman being able to carry, which I guess could only be in relation to the spell that he was using to get everybody.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Maddie. It is that this enables them to dramatize Saruman's carrying voice, and it also makes for a more dramatic thing. Standing out in the open, with nothing around him, and it also enables him to fall off, since there's no rail up there. A balcony, in theory, to be a balcony has a rail, and so it makes the fall more dramatic and more fun. So you see all the things that appeal to a director of cinematography. Says, hey, let's do it like this. Let's put him on top of Orthanc. It doesn't matter about the height. Only nerds will notice. And true enough, we noticed.
Yeah. Again, it's true. I mean, I noticed back when I watched it. At the same time, even today, 16 years later, sorry, it's not something that really bothers me. It's just one of those small nitpicks that are okay. Sure, why not?
You have to understand. I watch all 3 director's cuts about once every 6 weeks.
Yeah, but
and I have since they came out. So to say that I know, I can literally recite most of the dialogue from memory.
This I believe, to be completely honest. So
I'm that much of a dork.
What do we think about Saruman and Wormtongue by extension being killed here?
Well, it gets rid of the need for the scouring. big thing, the big motivator for the scouring of the Shire is to get rid of Saruman. You've got unfinished business. You've got two things going on. Theoretically, the Shire has been corrupted, and you have to resolve the plot arc of Saruman, and that's left unresolved until the Hobbits get back to the Shire. And the movie just said, no, we'll just take care of that here. Blow off the scouring of the Shire, pretty much. It's harkened to in Galadriel's Mirror a little bit, but beyond that, you don't really see much of a threat to the Shire, other than Merry and Pippin's dialogue. There won't be a Shire, but other than that, there's no threat to the Shire, and there's no reason and Jackson was thinking there's no need to do that. This movie's going to end 5 or 6 times anyway, and if I had my way, and we're going to get to my rant at the end of this, it would have ended one more time, because there would have been a narrator voiceover that would have basically read the entire appendices and added another 2 hours to the movie. But that's my fantasy. Yeah,
that's another thing. Let me put my opinion that says I would have, again, this is one of those, I would have loved this. We'll get to the scouring later. But I would have loved to have it. But if we don't have the scouring, which we don't, killing Saruman now is probably the best choice that could be made.
I absolutely agree. I don't really have a problem with this, given the constraints that he was under. If you're not going to have a scouring, you've got to end Saruman somewhere, and you might as well get it done here, because he doesn't really do anything else.
Well, see, if you go back to the Two Towers when they were in Lothlorien and people were, they were looking into Galadriel's mirror, they did hint at a scouring of the Shire, but
yes, that's what I was talking about. Yes, exactly. Yep, no doubt about it. So you get that. That's almost an Easter egg for nerds, though.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, Saruman is dead. We ride away from Isengard.
Okay.
This is where the next. Sorry.
There's something that one of the most interesting aspects of this world are the Dunedain to me.
Yes, this is exactly what I was getting to. So you can start that.
Okay, so where is the Rangers Company? Where are the Sons of Elrond? Where are the Sons of Elrond? And
again, this is exactly where I'm with you. Again, as I said last week, I don't think we necessarily needed the Sons of Elrond. Elladan and Elrohir could have been left out. But the Grey Company, God damn it, should have been there, because it would have solved so many problems that I had with a lot of the plot. And also, again, where is the Dunedain? Well, they are here. And again, it's just, if you had elves at Helm's Deep, you could have had a bunch of Dunedain riding with the others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Again, I'm okay.
That's a great point, actually. I'd think of it.
I am okay with not having the Sons of Elrond. Again, it's a movie with enough characters already.
I know, but it would have been so cool.
I know. But like I said, any difference from the book is a bad thing. But there are bad things, and there are bad things that made the movie a better movie, and there are bad things that were to the detriment of the movie. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that having the Sons of Elrond left out is to the detriment of the movie, but I do feel, actually, that, or at least to the movie story, I do feel that the lack of the Grey Company is to the detriment of the movie story, because then you have to have the whole situation with let's take that now.
Okay.
Because then you have to have the whole subplot with Elrond suddenly showing up 500 miles south of his house.
What are you doing here?
With a sword,
right?
And I mean, that was some very quick walking there, Lord Elrond.
And you haven't left Rivendell in as far as we know about 450 years, or maybe it's 500 years. What the hell? What are you doing down here?
Yeah.
That was when the first time I saw the movie, and you see the figure in the cloak, and he turns around and it's Elrond, and I just go, well, this is unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what? Again, this again also feeds back into my annoyance from the last movie with the way they decided to portray Aragorn as somewhat not actually wanting to become king.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Elrond somehow Elrond showing up with a sword has to convince him about to that. It just it's one of those things where I just feel like for the average viewer, I'm sure it doesn't ruin the plot.
Yeah, but
for anyone who's actually a fan of the story, it's just dumb.
Yeah, Anduril. Okay, now I'll be king. What?
Yeah.
Really? The sword?
Right, yeah.
Which,
The sword did that? Really? No.
Which, of course, also leads to the whole Arwen and Elrond subplot. Are we leaving? Are we not leaving? You should be leaving. You should not be leaving. I get it's probably the best way of showing the emotional turmoil regarding his daughter that Elrond has to be under, even in the book. At the same time, it's one again of those cheapening of characters that I ranted about last time. Yes, Elrond probably doesn't want his daughter to marry Aragorn from an emotional standpoint because he knows he's going to lose her forever. Like, quite literally forever. But at the same time, in the books, he's quite okay with it if that's what,
if that's what she wants.
If Aragorn can lead the West to victory and his daughter will be happy for what that will be in his life, he seems fairly okay with it. I mean, he's sad about it, but he doesn't seem like he's complaining about it, and there is no evidence that he is trying to send her away. So, like I said, it's just one of those. It's not that I don't understand what they're trying to do, drama and everything, and of course, it gives us another view at Fickwit, which is also always a good thing. But it's just another one of those cheapening of characters that doesn't need it. Elrond is basically defined by being wise. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, he doesn't seem wise, honestly.
He seems a bit manipulative, especially when Arwen confronts him about his visions, and he says, well, I saw death. And she said, I saw life, and I saw my son.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems to me to be something Elrond wouldn't do. Yeah. I mean, I don't see Elrond as someone who would be Also, he, again, in the book, in the appendices, and I'm sure we will get to Skep's wonderful rant about the appendices at the end of this. But in the appendices, he's very, you want to marry my daughter? I don't like that. He doesn't tell Aragorn why, though I'm certain as he grows older, he will realize exactly why. But it's like, okay, make sure you destroy the enemy and become king first. Then go ahead. All I want is for my little girl to have someone able to give her the lifestyle she appreciates, basically.
Yeah.
But it's one of those situations where, again, for the average viewer, probably not a big problem. Yeah. For those who are already fans, and probably even for those who became fans after watching the movies and then reading the book, it's a bit dumb. Yeah. Let's put it like that.
I do have a question for the two lore masters here. They do have the portion of the book where she chooses to be with Aragorn. I mean, in the movie, where she chooses to be with Aragorn, and then all of a sudden, she's losing the light of the Eldar. I thought that was only available for half-elves in the world of the Lord of the Rings.
She is a half-elf.
Oh, that's right. Elrond. Okay.
Elrond is a half-elf, and Elrond's children are giving. I mean, half-elf in Lord of the Rings is seemingly a bit tricky proposition because it doesn't necessarily refer to 50-50 parentage. It seemed to have more to do with your elves have one destiny as appointed by God, humans have another, and if you have mixed blood, at least to a certain level, you get to pick which one you prefer to belong to. But it doesn't necessarily, I mean, to a certain level, to a certain degree, once you get too diluted of the elven blood or human blood, you lose the ability to choose. But as long as you're sort of on and off, then apparently you get the choice. And Arwen and her brothers should be about 25% human to 75% elf.
Yeah,
if my remembrance of their family line is correct.
That's my understanding also.
I keep forgetting he's Elrond half elven. Always throws me off.
That's right. He chose the elf part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, while his brother
did not.
Equally half elven became a human, so to speak. Which he didn't actually. That's a wrong way of putting it. Yeah. He chose the fate of the humans.
Absolutely.
But that is perhaps something to get more into when we, I don't know, maybe next week, I don't know. But when we get to a Silmarillion video, we can get more into that particular detail.
I figured next week we're going to start on The Hobbit. That way all of us can rant about, how they turned one book into a movie.
I'm just saying, when we finally get to the Silmarillion, that is something to take more of. Anyway, with Sauron, I'm sorry, Maddie. I know I'm taking a lot of your role as narrator today, but I realize that you had other things to do. So
yes.
With Saruman dead, of course, the reason for Gandalf riding to Minas Tirith is basically only the fact that Pippin looks in the Palantir, while in the book what actually provokes it is the flyover of the Nazgul, because a Nazgul on the western side of the river means that the war has started. And the Nazgul is specifically coming to check up on Saruman.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Again, it's not a big thing, but it's a change from the book. Honestly, even most people who have read the book would probably not remember the fact that is what spurred Gandalf to pick up Pippin and ride to Gondor. But it is a minor change. That, of course, also leads to the fact that Aragorn and the boys, Gimli and Legolas, with Merry, of course, actually arrives in Harrowdale with Theoden and his troops instead of he also riding ahead. In the book, Aragorn and the Grey Company is already in the Path of the Dead when Theoden and the Rohirrim reaches Edoras and Harrowdale and begin the muster.
Yeah.
Here they are all together. Again, this is one of those situations where I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Doesn't particularly matter. I have my issues with the actual Path of the Dead, but again, I don't see, we talked about it slightly last time, I don't see how you could have really put the trip we are told about through the Path of the Dead in a movie without sprucing it up a bit, because actually if you just go by the book, nothing really happens. There's a lot of implications that there is somewhat like ghosts behind them, but basically they just ride through some tunnels, come out the other end, unfurls a banner, and that's it.
Yeah. I like the theatrical depiction of, the Demalt Road and the Path of the Dead, because it adds to the story, in my opinion, because it gives you a little bit more insight as to what could have happened.
Yeah.
That they were hinting in the book that might have happened. And the way they filmed it and put it on the big screen was just very impressive in my opinion.
Yeah. I could have lived without the skull waterfall, which I think was Peter Jackson letting his fascination with horror movie run a little bit away with him.
Mm-hmm.
If you consider his previous career at that point, which was Heavenly Creatures and Brain Dead, I think, or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah.
Fairly gory horror movies. That was the skull waterfall or skull avalanche was perhaps a little bit.
That was over the top.
But I don't actually mind the three of them. I mean, again, that should have been the Grey Company, in my opinion. But I don't actually mind them having a bit more action-y adventure, actually meeting the ghosts, because, well,
I thought
again,
I thought that scene was kind of fun. I beg your pardon for being gone like that. I'm having some dogs stay over, and I have to deal with them. So I apologize for that. Anyway,
no, I will say, completely unrelated to the book versus the movie thing. The Lord of the Rings online game got it. I loved traveling with the Grey Company in the game.
I never got that far. I really should start playing again so I can get that far.
That is absolutely the way they do it in the game. Is you wind up traveling with the Grey Company. You find a dwarf that makes a exact copy of Aragorn's signet ring in order to grab attention from. Get Sauron's attention so that the Fellowship can actually continue moving without being spotted. So you're traveling with the Grey Company as a diversion.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Pretty cool. But like I said, no, I agree with you, Skep. I actually like the scene. Like I said, I could have left out the skull avalanche, which I think is I'm sorry. Sorry to the whatever audience we have. I'm repeating myself. I think that was Jackson's personal proclivities running away with him, but the actual scene under the mountain with the ghost, that was fine for me. It showed what they wanted to show. It also showed why Anduril was important.
Yeah.
I mean, up until now, it's just this sword that. Yeah. I mean, it actually has meaning. So if you have to do the whole clunky thing about Elrond delivering it, using it like that is at least a very good idea.
That was a very good idea, and when it clangs against the
ghost blade,
that was, I knew it was going to do that. The first time I saw him, I thought it's going to be solid against that blade, and it was. Yep. And I was so happy. I just thought that was a good idea. Anyway, it made me very happy.
The way they played that was very, very good. And again, because I'm a geek I'm 100% a geek for the game. There's a session play event where you get to play as Aragorn's ancestor in the game and be betrayed by these people.
Yeah.
So you get
interestingly enough, in the books, he's not so much betrayed, in as much as they had just promised to come and help him fight. Yeah. And when the time came, they didn't. Mm-hmm. And Isildur basically said, okay, well, fuck you then. You're not going to be allowed to go to heaven until you have somehow made up for it. And then he left.
Yeah, you're going to live in an unending, what was it?
I can't remember. Your people will die out.
Living nightmare, that's what it was.
Yeah. Your people will die out and you will be forever in... I can't remember. The point is... Anyway, like I said, this is one of those few changes from book to movie that I'm actually all for. Not because the book is bad, just because it would so not have worked.
Yeah.
As cinematography.
Yeah.
So leaving that out, what is the next? Well, of course, we can finish that one off a little bit. The bringing the ghost to fight the pirates is straight out of the book.
Yep.
Yes, of course, it's been movie-fied up because we're only told about it rather than actually seeing it. But it's straight from the book.
And it's ripping good fun, though.
Oh, it's so fun, especially seeing Peter Jackson get shot by an arrow.
Yes, that's a great cameo.
Yeah, but we'll get back to this regarding Pelennor, but of course the fact that this is how we do it means that there is no southern Gondor army. What Aragorn and the boys are actually doing, or the Grey Company is actually doing, is cutting off the pirates so they can bring the south armies of Gondor up to the battle. But we'll get to that later.
All this time I'm thinking, oh boy, when the first time I saw the movie, I thought, I wonder what Imrahil will look like,
Yeah, that was my thought as well. That was actually the very next thing on my list.
Okay, go for it.
Well, it wasn't. But no, go ahead, because I have something about Rohirrim first.
Well, yeah. The whole thing, Imrahil, Dal Amroth, all that interesting stuff that happens in that tantalizingly not that much fleshed out part of Gondor that you get in the book. I mean, that was one of the things that whet my appetite to know more about the Lord of the Rings, which led to me reading the Silmarillion and spending a ridiculous part of my, ridiculous amount of my life happily plowing through the tales of Middle Earth of a place that
I still want a spin-off of Forlong the Fat. He comes into the story, everyone cheers him, and then he dies. Yes. And I think he's just so... I just love someone called Forlong the Fat. Yes. Maybe because I'm a big guy myself, but nonetheless.
Fair enough.
But anyway, we can leave the boys for now. Maybe go back a bit to the Rohirrim. Okay. One change from movie to book is that in the book, Éowyn is disguised a lot. She's so disguised that Merry doesn't even realize who she is.
He thinks he's a fella.
Yeah. He doesn't actually realize that it's Éowyn until the actual battle.
Well, he even has a name. He even has a phony name.
Yeah. While here, I know the king said she was supposed to stay home, which, by the way, was not a bad decision by the king. But Theoden, sorry. But it's like anyone who's on the ride of the Rohirrim must know that is the princess, including Éomer and Theoden.
Yeah.
They cannot be surprised at this. They simply cannot.
No.
She called herself Dernhelm in the movie, by the way. In the book.
Dernhelm.
Oh, Dernhelm or whatever. It means something like, I can't remember. In Old Nordic, it's something like stern visage or something. Visage helmet or something. But anyway, like I said, I would be surprised in the movie if Éomer and Theoden didn't actually realize she was there, since she might not take her helmet off, but I mean, she's talking freely, and I would be very surprised if someone hasn't mentioned, oh, by the way, the niece you told to stay behind, she's like right over there, 20 feet away from you, my lord.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the way, Dernhelm in German means the helmet.
Yeah. We can
just
take
just some fun.
Yeah. I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because I'm already on the ride of the Rohirrim, but can I just say that maybe the single best, and we're talking about the Lord of the Rings, which was the vistas and the nature shots were rather spectacular, but can I just say that despite the fact that they had way too many fire pits, the lighting of the beacons might have been the single most awe-inspiring scene I saw in the entire goddamn movie.
Yep.
Yeah,
I wanted to get up and shout.
Yeah, the music swelling, and just row over the mountaintops as the beacons were lit. Holy crap, it was so good.
It brought tears to my eyes. It really did.
Again, there's supposed to be 7 of them, and I think we see about 15 light up.
Yeah, exactly.
But in this case, that is what I call minor details.
That's not important. The important
I think they wanted, with the extra beacons and stuff, just in my opinion, to give people a really good feeling of how big this world is and how far Gondor was from Edoras.
I agree, and like I said, I don't give a crap. They could have added 14 in the book for all I care.
Yeah.
Just the whole scene was spectacular.
Here's the thing. And how long had it been since the beacons had been lit before? When was the last time the beacons were lit?
The long winter, 2850.
2850. And so you have people who spend their lives up on a mountaintop just looking at another mountaintop, waiting for that mountaintop to go up in flames.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to do that for a living.
Yeah,
that would make me very happy.
Now, I'm with you. This is also the lighting of the beacons and stuff is, at least in the movie, a turning point and a small bit of an arc for Pippin's character, because you're actually seeing the fact that Pippin is coming into a little more of his own here, because
he gets a little bit of respect and dignity, a little bit of pride.
Indeed, but I want to get back to that in a little. I want to get back to that in a second, if I may, because there is one thing about the beacon. I'm still in Rohan, and there is one thing about the beacon scene that I really actually appreciated. It's not a change from the movie, even if it was dramatized, but we have had the change from the movie that Theoden seems to have been somewhat annoyed at Gondor, and it's been sort of on and off. Does he even want to go there and help? And then the beacon scene, and I could see Jackson wanting to add yet again, like with the end mood, a little bit of pointless drama, but instead he's just like, okay, screw it, we're going. Gather up all the men we're riding, like, right now.
Yeah, the pregnant pause first, because the silence while Aragorn waited for Theoden's answer was the small bit of suspense in the crowd where, okay, is he going to say screw them because Gondor never came to his aid, or is he finally going to say, all right, I'm doing this because Aragorn is asking, not because Denethor is.
Yeah, and the point is, it doesn't matter. He knows he needs to ride, so he rides. Yep. Let me just finish the Gondor, this Rohan section, then we can go to the interesting stuff down in Minas Tirith by, of course, mentioning that there is no Ganburigan and the wild men of the forest in the movie as there is in the book, and again, no one cares.
Yep.
It would slow down the action, and it would be pointless.
Yep. Weren't they in the two towers though? Wasn't those?
No. They are on the ride. They are on the ride. We basically leave Merry. We follow the ride of the Rohirrim in the shadow of the mountains down to actually the Wildman's Forest, where they talk to Ganburigan, and then we leave them until they arrive at Pelennor.
Yeah.
But let's go to the interesting bit. Gondor. And can I again, if I haven't mentioned it before, I think I've mentioned it before, just say how much I love the movie's design of Minas Tirith.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes, amen, brother.
Let me put that on the screen here. So
they used the same set that they used for Helm's Deep.
Yeah, just added in another place. Yes, I know, but it's so good.
I know. I'm very happy about that. I wasn't being critical at all. I just thought it was wonderful. I just thought that was wonderful.
Yeah. No, I'm good with that. I am totally good with that.
You have got to be kidding me. Come on, share it, you little fuck.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm
Okay.
fighting with my computer.
Sound like my wife. I didn't know.
No. This is me arguing with a computer because I keep trying to copy and paste what I want it to, and it keeps sharing the same thing over and over again. And boom, there we are, Minas Tirith.
Yeah, and I mean, the city might actually be a little bit too small for the amount of people who's supposed to live there.
Yeah.
But holy crap, is it gorgeous, and I don't care.
Yeah,
It's
the detailing that they've
spot
put on
on. It's spot on out of the book, and it's so gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we? What was I want to say? Oh yeah, changes from the book. The very arrival in the book where Gandalf. The very arrival in the book is basically spot on.
Mm-hmm.
What changes do we have? Well, like Skep said, there's no Imrahil. There is none of the southern. There's none of the southern Gondorian troops in the muster, which I actually missed a little bit. I think they could have taken their time to do something like that.
If they can have all of the Arwen and Aragorn making calf eyes at each other, all the time they spent on that, they could have had a little bit of southern Gondor in there. That pissed me off. Yeah,
we of course missing the whole subplot of Pippin making a new friend with a guardsman and his son.
Baragon's son, yeah.
Bergil. At the same time, I kind of get why, because in the book, a lot of the plot point about that is that people keep mistaking Pippin for a young child.
Yeah.
And while while they are very, very good at doing the height difference in the movie, holy crap, do they make that work? There is no way in living hell that anyone would mistake Billy Boyd for a small child.
Well, yeah, and interestingly enough, the tallest person in the cast played Gimli.
Yeah.
Think about that.
But my point is that while they could make him look small, Pippin is supposed to be a young teenager, a teenager. Billy Boyd was, I think, 30 at the time, and his features show it. There is just no way they could put him up next to a 10-year-old, and I mean, they could make him seem shorter than the 10-year-old, fine, but there is no way you could look at those two and say, yeah, they're probably the same age.
You know, I agree with you. There's an interesting thing about hobbits, and if you're enough of a nerd to know this about hobbits have this concept of the tween years. And you could, in my mind, Billy Boyd was perfect for just coming out of the tween years of Hobbit. That's exactly what I would think a Hobbit coming out of his tween years would sound like.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, that's not the point. My point is he has to obviously be played by a human, which means that 30-year-old Billy Boyd, who actually has the right age to play Pippin, who is 29,
right,
looks more mature than a 29-year-old Hobbit would. He looks more finished.
Mm-hmm.
If you get what I mean.
Simply
because a 30-year-old human
did not act more finished. I would throw that caution in there. To me, he did not act more finished.
No. Again, I'm certainly not punching Billy Boyd. I think all of the main actors did a spectacular job. I'm just saying a 29-year-old Hobbit would look like a teenager. Billy Boyd doesn't look like a teenager, and there is no way you could put him next to a 10-year-old and anyone would think that they were the same age.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. So anyway, I was just I'm because I'm here to defend the performances by the cast. I thought.
No. There was nothing in the performances. It was a pure visual perspective.
Yep.
Holy crap! Did everyone play well? The fact that this movie didn't get more acting awards back in the day is a fucking disgrace.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still. I was happy because it was like the first movie of its genre, fantasy movie, to actually get any Academy Awards at all.
Hey,
Yeah.
I am super happy. I'm just saying, in my opinion, there should have been a few acting awards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. If nothing else, I understand why, but I will never forgive them for not giving a supporting actor award to what's his name, the guy playing Gollum.
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
I know why they did it, and I even support that to a certain degree. They should still have done it.
Yeah, I don't support that. He was wronged. That was an absolutely spectacular performance.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice that he came up with, which, by the way, he developed by imitating his cat, was amazing. That was that was perfection.
Yep.
That was Gollum. That was the most Gollum-y Gollum I could ever imagine.
Let me put it like this. Most of the characters, not all of them, most of the characters were actually fairly close to how I would visually and orally see them and hear them in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy Serkis's Gollum was 100% spot on.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, to me, he was brilliant because when he was doing the scenes with the inner dialogue, you could literally hear the difference between the Ring speaking and Smeagol speaking.
Yeah.
You could really, the mannerisms, because the mannerisms were his. It was motion capture CG. But I mean, the voice was different. The way he was looking was different because, they were only, the Golem was superimposed on top of him. So a lot of those poses were him. But
I know they were in the Two Towers. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Maddie. I'm just following up on your argument. I know it's back in the Two Towers, so we're a movie late.
Yeah.
But of all the things that happened, the fact that Serkis didn't get a acting award for the scene in the Two Towers where he's arguing with himself.
Oh my God! Yes, you're right.
It's a travesty on Hollywood.
Too right.
It is.
Too right.
It is.
I agree violently.
Yeah.
God, that was so subtly perfect that oh God.
Yeah, and then in Return of the King, where he was having the inner dialogue again, where he was plotting to take and then I had to laugh because there they were asleep. He got the lembas bread. He's framing Sam, and Sam goes, "He ate all the bread," and it says no, does not like nasty elven bread. Like,
nope.
Yeah, I had to laugh at that. Funny.
Admittedly, I was going to wait with this until we get to Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
But admittedly, if I may just mention, if anyone have ever seen or not seen the Ralph Bakshi cartoon version, at least their Gollum has one of the funniest scenes in the entire goddamn thing, where it's that particular scene where Sam wakes up and, shouts at him, and Gollum becomes incredibly offended about saying, Sam wakes up and saying, "What are you sneaking around for?" Gollum wakes up and said, sneaking, I'm not sneaking, blah, 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 blah. And it eventually gets an apology out of Sam, and then Frodo wakes up and says, "Smeagol, where are you going?" And just, this is where I would have loved Serkis to use the exact same scene, because from the cartoon movie where he's just like, they've had this 5-minute scene about him not liking the word sneaking. Frodo wakes up and says, "Where are you going, Smeagol?" And he's like, "Sneaking!"
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, you have to see it because the comic potential is spectacular.
It is. That was great. I love that scene. That was about as good as "that hates nasty elven bread." Like,
yeah. Let me, by the way, defend the movie here. If you remember, when Faramir is riding back to Minas Tirith at one point, and Gandalf comes out and scares away the Nazgul with a ray of light from his staff.
Yes.
Leaving aside the fact that it bothers the question of why he doesn't bother doing that again later, which Peter Jackson answered with the fact that his staff was running out of batteries, which I like.
Nice.
One thing is, why did he have Pippin on the horse? They've already arrived. There's no reason to take Pippin out again. That's of course because the scene was originally meant.
Yeah, why is Pippin,
the scene was originally meant to be?
What is Pippin doing on the horse?
Yeah,
originally the scene was meant to be set when they first arrive in the city, and it was moved to later. That's why he's on the horse. But the point is, while the scene is out of whack from where it is in the story, Gandalf actually does do that. This is exactly what he's described as doing in the retreat from the Causeway forts. Every time the Nazgûl sweep down on them, a burst of light would appear from Gandalf's staff and they would fly off again. This is basically
proving that they are slow learners.
Yeah, I mean, they're, or at least incredibly stubborn.
Yeah, very stubborn.
They were probably expecting him to run out of electricity. I don't know. Ice Staff 5000 has a problem with battery life.
Did they have lithium-ion batteries for wizard staff back in the day, or
something like that? But the point is, while it's not exactly described as like a ray of light coming out of his staff, I have heard people complain about that scene. But it is actually from out of the book.
Yeah,
it's just put in a different chronological location.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else we want to talk about? Oh yeah, the change of the Denethor-Faramir relationship is subtly different.
It's horrible.
Denethor in the book really only loses his mind and becomes completely unhinged once Faramir is wounded.
Yeah. Before
that, in the book, he is despairing. He is incredibly harsh. He will never win a Father of the Year award, and he's not particularly a nice person. But you can still see the inherent nobility in him, and you can still understand why a man who's about to see his entire country and city and everything he has worked for be thrown to the wolves. Why he would.
I have a theory about that. I think Peter Jackson wanted to say, I've got John Noble here, and Noble is like a prize athlete at playing crazy sinister.
Oh yeah.
He's the man. He is the man, and he said, I'm going to let him go out and chew up the scenery and depart a little bit from the rather one-dimensional Denethor, I feel, that's in the book, and let him imbue this character with some real sinister paranoia crazy.
Yeah,
I think that's what I think that was the decision.
I don't disagree with you, and again, I was about to say I don't really mind, because again, they leave out the Palantir, so we lose the entire explanation of why Denethor is so whacked out.
Yeah.
Denethor in the book has a Palantir, and it's because he looks in that Palantir constantly towards this time that he is basically losing his mind, because he has to fight Sauron's.
He fought him at first. He fought him at first, and then he basically was corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to a certain degree. And since we're losing that, again, that's something I don't disagree with, by the way. I have no idea why they wouldn't use that plot point, because it would have been explaining quite a lot, honestly, and not just turning him into a raving madman just because, well, that's what he is.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that. That's a piece that John Noble could have really hit out of the park.
Yeah, isn't it?
He could have really done a great job at that. Man, that's a good idea, Tim.
Again, I'm not really complaining. It would be the movie is fine as it is. Yeah. It's just another step in the sort of, not ruining, because you don't really ruin it, but cheapening a character. It's sort of cheapening Denethor's character that he's just a villain,
without explanation. In the book, there is, at least when you finally realize he does have a Palantir, it has an explanation. And I agree. Imagine John Noble in a Palantir scene as he basically loses his mind.
Yes, staring into the eye of Sauron. Yeah, that absolutely, they missed an opportunity.
Yeah, that would have been a whole lot better than the way they did it.
Yeah. But I mean, even in the book, even though he is going crazy from despair, he's not actually going full-on supervillain crazy until after Faramir is hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While he is incredibly cold.
That's significant.
While he is incredibly cold with his son, and some of the dialogue is basically taken from the book, if perhaps given another spin. In the book, it's implied that he's just incredibly icy and cold, while John Noble, because it's John Noble, is a bit more shouty, insane. But he doesn't actually use after Faramir has been hurt. It's the fact that his last son, who he loves a lot more than he's been willing to let on, probably even to himself, is dying. That's what makes him go around the bend. While in the movie, well, it's kind of like that in the movie, but even before that, he's a scene-chewing villain. My friend Lexi has her favorite, I think one of her favorite scenes is the tomato chewing while Pippin sings. Which is like, it's a great enough scene from a visual perspective, but again, it's like, he's not supposed to be that batshit insane yet.
Not yet.
In my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, because it got to that part of the movie where he said it would depend on the matter of your return, and I'm like, can I just reach through the screen and just deck him? Can I do that now?
Yeah. I mean, again, this is one of those things where, holy crap, did John Noble do a good job with what he was given.
Mm-hmm.
My God, is that man just super, one of those, like, this is a guy I love to hate. Movie Denethor is someone I just love to hate. Holy crap, is he despicable.
Well,
yep.
You know, you miss so much from the book Denethor at the end of his life. The pyre scene. When he's clutching the Palantir, right?
Yeah.
On the pyre. And clasping the Palantir with both hands upon his breath. And it was said that ever after, if any man looked in that stone, unless he had great strength of will to turn it to other purpose, he saw only two aged hands withering in flame. You know, that could have made a great visual scene. You know,
I agree.
And plus, the other thing is you don't get the heroic treason of Baragon. Baragon is one of my secret favorite characters, and they left him out of the movie. Left him completely out of the movie.
This is one of those points where I'm like, again, the movie doesn't need more characters, but in this case, I actually think it would have been strengthened by the Baragon subplot. You could have cut out his son. Fine, no point.
Yes,
but I think it would have strengthened the movie with having. Pippin's relationship with Gandalf becomes a lot stronger because a lot of what he does in the book seems to be in the movie with Gandalf instead of with Baragon. But I think it would have made a stronger movie with a heroic Gondor soldier we could relate to, who finally says, screw it with this crazy old man. Faramir is the guy I want to save.
Exactly. And you have that great line from Gandalf, you know, but think you servants of the Lord, blind in your obedience, that but for the treason of Baragon, Faramir, captain of the White Tower, would now be burned.
Yeah. Anyway, like I said, it
missed all that.
Yeah, that's again, it doesn't make a worse movie for that's wrong. Let me put it like this. It doesn't make a bad movie for not having it, but I think it would make a stronger movie for having Baragon as a character.
Yeah, understand all of my critical remarks are made, but these are remarks made by someone who, these are my favorite movies.
Yeah.
These are
Same
my
here.
favorite movies of all time, classed by themselves. Nothing else even enters the realm.
I am not criticizing the movies. I'm just saying some changes,
I just want to
the
know that
loss.
I'm not either.
No.
Yeah.
Like the loss of Eladan and Elra here, it wouldn't have strengthened the movie if they were there, because they don't actually do anything.
But Baragon does
Baragon does something,
important.
and he does something rather important. That is why I think it's not it. It doesn't make a bad movie out of him not having there, but it would have made a stronger movie if he had been there.
Right.
And again, during one of these scenes where, Pippin is looking for Gandalf because he's realized that Denethor has finished losing it, we get this other small tick to Pippin's arc where he literally saves Gandalf's life.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Which I like, actually.
Yeah, I like that too. It gave him more cred. And I would say, that's completely contrived, and I'm utterly okay with it. It's hammy as hell, and I loved it. I loved every second of it.
It was spot on brilliant.
Yep.
Let us just mention one little change from movie to book. From book to movie. Kamul is now a disfigured orc instead of the second in command, Nazgul. The disfigured orc general, for those of you who have only watched the movie, if anyone there.
Gothmog,
sorry. Gothmog. His role was supposed to be Kamul, the Black Easterling, which was a Nazgul.
Right.
He doesn't. I mean, the Nazgul were the generals, or some of the Black Numenorians were the generals, not so much the orcs.
Right.
If there is one thing the movie does, actually, if there's one thing the movie does, it kind of rehabilitates the orcs as the elite troops of evil.
Yes.
While in the books, if there is one thing that unites Sauron and his former master, it's that they are using the orcs, but they don't give a shit about them.
Right.
Holy crap, are they looking down on them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it's implied that as soon as Sauron achieves his aims and the men have been defeated,
yeah,
he's not going to have any other purpose for the orcs, if you know what I mean.
Nope. Yeah. I mean, the no way would book Sauron ever give overall army command to an orc. Just wouldn't happen.
And the other thing is just a little bit of LOTR philosophy here. That rolls on up to Sauron. You think Melkor is going to have any use for Sauron once men have been destroyed?
That is perhaps a little bit more tricky, but I get your point. Yeah.
I mean, yes, he's used them extensively in the past, and but with the changing role of the elves, I think Sauron's viability for as far as Melkor was concerned is limited.
But I think we will come back to that in Silmarillion because it speaks to.
Sorry about that.
More.
Sorry.
No. It's fine. I'm just saying it's a very long discussion that we have to take there. We can finish it now. It comes back to the difference between Morgoth and Sauron.
Exactly.
Morgoth wants to destroy the world because he cannot have it. Sauron is okay with just ruling
it. Exactly, and dominating it as a slave master. Yeah.
Morgoth want to either own it and not just rule it, but literally have physical control of the very essence of reality, or he will destroy it. Sauron is quite all right with having the world that he doesn't control in a sort of magical sense as long as he can rule it.
And it all started because he was a musical rebel, but we can get into that.
Yeah, but again, that's my point. That's actually an interesting philosophical discussion regarding the villains.
Yes,
the two great villains. So
I would love to have it with you. So,
and we are going to. What else do we have? Again, is there any? The only thing that I'm missing as much from the siege, I suppose, is that again, basically like a lot of things in the movie, it's too short.
Yeah.
The siege takes place over a full day and night.
I've got something I want to bring up, so go ahead. But there's something very specific I want to bring up.
Yeah, and we have no Battle of the Causeway forts. I mean, it's like Gondor apparently only has the bridge across the Anduin at Osgiliath, and then straight back to the city walls. While in the book they had a network of outwalls and fortresses and so on that the orcs had to take first. And the main problem was they simply didn't have enough men to defend all of them.
They were too extended and had to pull back.
Yeah.
But the thing I wanted to bring up was that it has a little bit to do with what you just talked about, the structure of Minas Tirith and what they called the outer passwords and the inner passwords. And all the stuff that Baragon has a kid named Gerbil or something. Virgil. Gerbil. I don't want to call him
Gerbil. Basically.
Anyway, Gerbil.
For all the good he does to the plot.
Exactly. And Gerbil takes Pippin in hand and takes him around, teaches him the outer passwords and so forth. But you learn a little. It's a device for Tolkien to tell you a little bit about the structure of Minas Tirith, and it really makes the city come alive. That's what that part does do in Return of the King. And I understand, it's only a 6-hour long director's cut. They just didn't have time to put everything I would have loved to have had in there, but I really would have liked to have had more of a feel for what day-to-day life was like in Minas Tirith.
I would have been perfectly fine if they would have done the Return of the King in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I agree. I agree. Let me put it like this: while I know that we use the extended version as the real version,
yes.
Let me put it like this: I fully support them not putting those minor fluff details into the theatrical version, because again, it would bring the plot to a literal standstill at a very dramatic juncture of the narrative.
Right.
But yes, I do think they could have added 10 minutes of that sort of stuff to the extended version without too much hassle.
Really, even 5 minutes, even just 2 quick scenes, 2 quick minute and a half long scenes could have set that up. And
I agree.
Made you feel better. So they decided not to do that. That's
the same thing with an extra 5 or 10 for the extended version, just to show Denethor with the Palantir.
Yeah, exactly. Let's, by the way, get back to that, because there was one thing that is a change that I sort of forgot to mention. I kind of brought it up. It's a change from book to movie where I don't actually know if and you can start calling the Inquisition on me. I think the movie did it better. In the book,
blasphemy.
Faramir is... Yeah, tell me about it, and I feel the same myself, dude. In the book, Faramir is wounded. Faramir is out fighting near the Causeway Fort, like I said, the outer defenses before the walls. Faramir is out fighting. He is retreating back to the city. The city does a cavalry sortie. Yes, Gondor has cavalry as well, despite them not actually seeing it in the movie. A good choice, because it would muddle the Rohirrim role.
Yeah.
But the point is, Faramir is basically wounded, kind of out of the blue, retreating to the city. He retreats to the city in good order, in actually fairly good order, pressed, but in good order, and he's wounded there. But it's kind of out of the blue. There's no immediate impetus to his wounding. While, of course, in the movie, he is wounded while leading a very ill-advised attack on Osgiliath as ordered by Denethor.
Which got everybody killed but him.
Yeah. They pulled a Ripley on Faramir. They pulled a Ripley.
Yeah. But my point is, I didn't like that attack, because even in his despair, Denethor would not have been dumb enough to
just
order such an attack.
Throw those lives away.
Yeah,
it
was It was beyond idiotic. However, it also means that the guilty conscience of him getting his son hurt made his madness perhaps played a little bit more well. Like I said, I would have done it differently, but I actually like the fact that Faramir's wounding is specifically Denethor's fault for Denethor's mental development in the plot, rather than basically an accident.
I don't disagree with you.
I mean,
Hey, let me just quick get this point out, and then I'll shut up. I don't disagree with you, but the idea of Faramir taking 50 guys, and that's about what it is. I've looked at this and counted them. Okay, I've stopped it and counted, advanced it 5 seconds, recounted, back to this guy, back, so forth. By the way, a lot of those guys are women. They're New Zealand women, just so you know.
Well, Gondor is in a difficult situation.
Yeah, exactly. Women with beards. They're playing men, but a lot of the horse riders and especially the riders of the Rohirrim are about 60% women. Just so you know, because there was an equestrian club.
That's diversity.
Helped them out. It's kind of fun.
Brianna Wu would have loved this movie.
Exactly. So, but anyway, just a little inside baseball there. So, but here's the thing: Faramir, out of because his dad is crazy. Is there a captain here who will do my will? Because his dad is absolutely nutsy. Takes 50 guys and goes to attack a bunch of dug-in, built-in orcs, 3,000 orcs, probably 2,500 to 3,000 orcs, who have taken over Osgiliath. And they're dug in fortification. He's going to take 50 cavalry guys and take back the city. Bullshit. No. And Faramir was smart enough to know that. Even Denethor was crazy, not crazy enough to not know that. And so in the movie, frankly, I just never bought. I just have to swallow.
Like I said, I consider
okay, whatever, it gets it done. I know why it's there. I know what it does. I know why it does it, and I don't like it. And let's move on.
Well, I mean, it's
no. I want to agree. Sorry, Maddie, you first.
Well, I mean, once you get rid of Saruman, which they did in the extended version, you kill Saruman. Then you kill the influence of the Palantir. So Denethor has no more of an influence, causing him to go further insane. So you have to do something else in its place to see the progression of him slowly going into this way of insanity. The death of Boromir, nobody telling him discovering it, him sitting there. That was his favorite, his most beloved son, his acting like an asshole and being cold-hearted toward Faramir, him sending Faramir to what he knew was absolute doom and basically looking at his kid going, if you come back in one piece instead of wounded or dead, I'm not going to have any respect for you.
Yeah.
All of this, I think, was directly in relation to the fact that the Palantir was left out. So they had to do something else to illustrate Denethor losing his nut, basically.
Yeah, and they could have solved all this with a 10-minute conversation with Sauron over the Palantir between Denethor and Sauron.
10 minutes? It could have been fucking 3 minutes. 3 minutes. It didn't even have to be a conversation.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. 3 minutes, conversation with Sauron, and Denethor is good and crazy, and everybody's happy, and we move on.
Yeah.
Let me just finish by saying that everything you said about the attack, I agree with. Everything about the attack was dumb, but I like, and we will finish with this, everything about the attack was dumb, but I like the fact that Faramir's wounding was Denethor's fault, rather than just the consequences of war.
I'm curious, do you like it set to Pippin singing?
I do. Actually, I thought that was
very artful. That's my favorite thing about it.
I thought that was basically that scene's whole again, it's a cheap. Okay. I wanted to avoid this, but let me just say, I think it was I think it was that scene's only saving grace, and I think it was a spectacular moment of movie making. Let me say the reason I hate it is, again, it's a cheapening of Faramir's character. Because, again, he goes out to defend the Causeway forts in the book in the same scene, but that is not a hope. Well, it is a hopeless task, but it is also a necessary task. Yeah. This is not in any way a necessary task, and it basically makes it seem like Faramir is committing suicide because his daddy doesn't love him anymore, which is a thing that Faramir would never fucking do because he's too wise and noble to do shit like that.
Exactly. And I think it was, they were building up this relationship, I hate using this word because it's been overused nowadays, but the toxicity of the relationship in between Denethor and Faramir, with Denethor, seemingly not giving a shit against toward Faramir, and then Faramir leaving to go try and unentrench the orcs, coming back almost dead, and then Denethor realizing, which basically causes his psychotic break, that, oh shit, this is my only son, and he almost died.
Yeah. And I actually do possibly just kind of love him despite everything. However, we might want to move on again unless we want to do a 2.5-hour show because we have quite a bit left to go.
Okay. We're going to have to break this. We're not going to.
I don't think we will. However, let me just make one point. Faramir is injured. This is not anything bad. Faramir is injured. He comes back to the city. He is brought to Denethor. Denethor runs out of the House of the Stewards to see him, and Denethor is looking. Everyone is standing up on top of the sort of ship keel that is part of the city, and then a trumpet sounds. We view over the Pelennor field, and the entire Mordor army is there. This is the second This is seemingly something Jackson liked, because it's basically the same shit he pulled with the Ents and the Ruined Forest that I ranted about last week. I'm not going to rant about this because it's not a plot point. It doesn't hurt anything. I just noticed that it's apparently a narrative trick he likes to use with someone who should have noticed that the entire goddamn Mordor or Morgul army was there until and they don't until a trumpet suddenly sounds.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, it's not bad.
You're not wrong.
I'm not complaining about it in this particular case. It makes a very dramatic moment. I just think it's an interesting look into Peter Jackson's directorial bag of tricks.
There's a big fucking army out there.
He did the same thing with Grima and Saruman when Saruman had to walk Grima out to the balcony to see the tens of thousands.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how do you not hear that many people outside the window? You dumb butt, are you deaf?
Yeah. Apparently, like I said, I'm not complaining. Both of those scenes were fine for what they were. It's just a funny look into, or perhaps an interesting look into something Peter Jackson likes to do. Yeah, however, what do we think in the book? Denethor withdraws in grief and basically just sits and stares at Faramir. So Gandalf sort of takes over command of the city's defenses by default. While here, Denethor has a complete psychotic break, starts wanting to surrender, and Gandalf clocks him with his staff.
I like that one.
What do we think about that one? Because personally, I like it just because movie Denethor is so abhorrent at this point that watching him get it's especially the sort of completely disgusted, like, fuck you idiot, that Ian McKellen puts on his face when he just punches him. It's not I'm angry, it's just like, for fuck's sake, God.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I loved it. It was him running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Pull everybody back. We're done. We're going to die. Whop! This is what we're going to do.
You get to hear John Noble in full voice say, "Flee! Flee for your lives!"
Right.
That is a great line.
I know.
Then he gets clocked. He gets knocked sideways by Gandalf.
It's a complete change from the book, and I love it to bits.
Me too.
I like it too. Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure.
The bell ringing of Denethor without the bell actually being there. He just rung his bell.
One thing. I know we've been getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we mentioned it earlier. Pippin, change of Pippin lighting the
beacon,
the beacons as a sort of Gandalf ploy, because in the books, Denethor actually does it before they even arrive in the city. He is calling for allies like he should.
Yeah, but that
in the books they are riding past down below the mountains while the beacons flare. While in the movie, it's the thing about Gandalf putting Pippin up to it as a sort of surreptitious plot to get out under Denethor's defeatism.
Yeah, well,
what do we think about that particular
and also to undermine him and to get Aragorn down there.
Yeah, of
time
course,
for Aragorn
of
to show up and take over the throne. Time for Denethor to burn himself up and Aragorn to come on down.
Well, I mean, they had already established Denethor from us looking at him after, Gandalf had said hello to him as him being this wanting to hold on to his power as much as he possibly could, not liking Gandalf because he knew Gandalf was there, with somebody to supplant him, as he says in the movie, loosely paraphrased. And then throughout the movie so far, Pippin has been curious, a little bit annoyed, being played as this character who was a total fuck up. And then here we are in this third movie. He's given chances to redeem his past mistakes, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
I think they did this mainly for Pippin to have some sort of redemption or positive character arc.
Possibly, and I agree with you. I like them for those exact reasons. It's a change from the movie, from the book, but I actually think it's to the benefit of the movie again. It kind of redeems Pippin from being just the silly buffoon, and again, everything that gives us the lighting of the beacon scene with the pan over the mountains will basically get, which we couldn't have had to the same degree if they had done it in the way it was in the book. Yeah. I'm okay with it. I am totally fine with it.
Yep, me too.
Yep, and you can't say it enough. That lighting the beacon scene.
Oh God, it's so good.
Makes me want to stand up and jump around.
Yeah,
it's so wonderful.
I don't think, with the single exception actually of Sam standing up to Shelob, I don't think there was a single scene in the movie when I went to see it in the theater the first time that got as big a cheer as the beacon scene.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Not a one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
And that little sly smile of Pippin's as he accomplished it, and then the sly smile fading to, oh shit, I gotta get down from here. I can start a fire.
I gotta get down from here.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
May I say that again? So we're talking right now about the siege. We're at the siege. They are missing, of course. They are not missing the scene where they are throwing severed heads over the walls.
Nope.
Even if it's missing the, shall we say, the emotional impact of the book, because you don't really. I mean, you kind of get that these are the Gondor troops killed at Osgiliath.
Yeah.
But the scene in the book is perhaps a lot more impactful. Let me say, I really like what they had done with Grond. I wondered what they would do with that, and that wolf-headed mega ram just works for me.
That was perfect. That was just that was one of those things where the director said, "I want something really big." They came back with a model, and he said, "No, twice that big." They came back with that, and he said, "No, 4 times that big," and then that was the right one, and it was huge, it was magnificent, and it was scary.
Well, they did the same thing with the Witch King's mace. They wanted it bigger, bigger, and bigger, and bigger. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's supposed to be ominous, but a mace does get to the point where the dude can't pick it up.
Yeah, that was honestly a bit silly, but at the same time, it's not that big a deal. You know what I like about the Grond scene, by the way? Wow. When Gothmog first said call for Grond, if you look in the background, the amount of orcs that are just being slaughtered at the gates is spectacular.
Oh yeah.
It's like in those 30 seconds where he turns around, smirks, and says "Call for Gron," he's losing like a full battalion of orcs.
Right.
It's like it's just a nice scene because it shows just to what degree the orcs are evil.
Yeah, and this is, I know this is Hollywood, or this is movie magic and all that. One of the things that, but this speaks to what you just talked about. In days of yore, when there were sieges like that, you would have piles of corpses at the bottom of these walls. Like, you wouldn't believe. They would stink. They were. It was a real problem back in the day. In this movie, there are not nearly enough corpses for the number of people or number of orcs and humans you see getting killed. There's about one corpse for every 20 deaths. So it's a miracle. But what can I say?
Well, they also had to fill in a lot of those with CG, which they did for the charge of the Rohirrim coming down the hill and stuff, because they simply just didn't have the numbers.
There aren't that many riders. There aren't that many horsemen in New Zealand.
Nope.
There just aren't.
May I, by the way, okay, so we can just do the Rohirrim charts, then we might want to finish for today because we've been going for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Let me just make one thing with the Rohirrim chart. It's just a point, and may I make one small history notice that has nothing to do with the movies, and it's a slight advertising for my old history channel.
Okay, please.
So, everyone has the chart of the Rohirrim, which is, again, one of those great moments of war movie visuals for me.
Yeah.
The Rohirrim charging into the orc frontage and just doesn't even use their weapons, just fucking riding over the damn things.
Yes.
But I made a movie about the Battle of the Kahlenberg, or basically the breaking of the siege of Vienna in 1683. So there is supposed to be about 6,000 Rohirrims in that charge. The Battle of the Kahlenberg was, and these Rohirrims are all about medium to lightly armored.
Yeah.
The Battle of the Kahlenberg in 1683, you have about maybe 30 to 40,000 Osman soldiers being charged by 18,000 heavy cavalry led by at least 4,000 Polish winged hussars. The winged hussars were a very heavily armed heavy cavalry that had a sort of wing contraption on their back that fluttered like they were, wings.
Interesting.
I made a video about that. It was always meant to be my magnum opus as a history YouTuber. It didn't quite work, but to the end of me, if there was one thing, the fact that has never been made into a proper war movie in the West annoys me. Take the Rohirrim charge, triple it, put these people in heavy metal armor, and then just smash them into a bunch of Turks.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
No war elephants to stem the tide.
Now I want to see your video.
Yeah, you can go do it. It's called the Siege.
Go check it out. What's it called?
Fuck, I can't remember. It was called this. It was from last autumn. It's about a year old, and I think I just called it the Battle of Vienna.
Okay, I'll check. I will check it out. Here's the thing about the Rohirrim showing up and charging down into the battle. I just want to read something from Return of the King. That this is the way. This is typical of the battle description. In that east rode the knights of Dal Amroth, driving the enemy before him. The trollmen and variags and orcs that hated the sunlight. South strode Eomer, and men fled before his face, and they were caught between the hammer and anvil. For now men leaped from the ships to the caves of the Harland, and swept north like a storm. And there came Legolas and Gimli, wielding his axe, and Halbarad the standard, and Elladan and Elrohir with stars on their brow, and the dour-handed Dunedain rangers of the north, leading a great valor of the folk from Lebanon and Lamedon and the fiefs of the south. And before all went Aragorn with the flame of the west, Anduril, like a new fire kindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow was the star of Elendil. You don't get that majesty in the movie.
Yep.
And that's the big thing that battle lacked for me was that emotion and that power of all of these great people and elves and dwarves and so forth coming together into this united front against evil.
It's like my
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, despite all of this, the charge is still amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And yet, in spite of that, I still love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
I remember being in the theater and watching it, and Paul was just a small child at the time, and I remember him going, "Mom, I know they're charging, and I know they're on horses, but the orcs are supposed to be fearless." I said, "Paul, close your mind for a minute and imagine you on a battlefield, and then all of a sudden you see thousands of horses charging in your direction. Wouldn't your butt pucker?" He went, "Yeah. Come to think of it."
with lances with razor sharp edges on the end.
Yeah, that's enough to make anybody's butt pucker.
Oh yeah, and
I have put the link to my video in the channel chat in the video chat.
Thank you, sir.
For that particular movie, we also have one viewer. Thank you to whoever that one person is.
Right.
Well, we've got 3 watching now. At least that's what I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We had 1 a minute ago.
Yeah, it's been from like 3 to 4 to 1 to 2. You know, up and down, up and down.
Again, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's take one last thing before we leave for today, because that is a thing that kind of annoys me.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it doesn't. It takes the confrontation between. Okay, so the city is breached straight out of the book. Everything is fine, kind of, except that this actually happened down at the main gate rather than further up the city. But screw that. The city is breached. The confrontation between Gandalf and the Witch King.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's made perfectly clear that the Witch King is obviously the stronger. He basically wins the confrontation and would probably have killed Gandalf if he had taken just 30 seconds more to bring down a sword stroke, despite the Rohirrim arriving. In the book, they never get to fight, and the reason he runs away is because the battle between him and Gandalf would be very uncertain, and he doesn't have time to take that battle with the Rohirrim having just arrived, riding in with their horns wildly blowing. I can't remember the actual quotation, but the Rohirrim had come at last.
Yes.
The sun rises, the rooster crows, the Rohirrim rides in with horns wildly blowing, and the Nazgul leader knows that I don't think I can take this wizard in the time it will take those guys to annihilate my army. I better get back out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they
I didn't like the fact that they depowered Gandalf to that degree.
Me either.
Once Gandalf is the white wizard, there is literally no one but Sauron who's supposed to be able to take him on.
That's right.
Yep.
At least in a one-on-one. The full might of the Nazgul.
One of the most powerful of the Maiar.
Yeah. I mean, the full might of the 9 Nazgul together, maybe even the helpers, could probably have given him quite severe difficulties. But one-on-one,
Nah.
the Witch King is really not supposed to be able to face him. He does it because the Witch King is still the Witch King, and one of his traits is overweening arrogance. But Gandalf,
the Witch King is a product of Melkor.
Yeah,
and Gandalf is a product of Iluvatar.
Yeah,
it makes a difference. It's a difference.
Gandalf the Grey could probably not have stood up against the Witch King, at least not for ages. But Gandalf the White
he's the leader.
should not be able to
Yeah, exactly.
should not be able to be defeated that easily.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Quite right. Quite right.
Yeah.
Should we leave it here?
Yep.
I think so. We can take the actual Rohirrim charge and the death of Theoden and
Yes.
what goes on,
Absolutely.
the travels of Frodo and so on next time.
This is great fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm having so much fun with this. It's so cool.
I am too. I hope you guys don't mind having me along.
Yep. Oh,
No,
no problem.
fuck
And welcome, squad winners.
You're like the less intelligent cousin.
The first time you've been in my chat, we will be here every Sunday, noon Central Standard Time, for a walk on the geek side. Next week, we're going to pick it up with the charge of the Rohirrim, and we're going to go to the end of the Lord of the Return of the King, rather, and the differences, and then we're going to start hitting on a little bit more on the appendices and go into some lore and possibly some character studies in the following weeks. So please be sure to like if you liked it, share it out because I know YouTube isn't going to. If you want to know where my co-hosts Skep and Sage can be found, all of that is in the beautiful description below the stream.
Thank you, Maddie, for doing all this.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
I'm having fun listening to the two of you talk and talk about things that we all have in common. I mean, it's very enjoyable and it's relaxing from a whole week of me doing my news stuff. So
Sure.
it's a great change of pace.
This is great fun for me too.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for doing this.
No problem.
You too, guys. You too.
Once again, join us again next week, next Sunday, Central Standard Time, same channel, for another walk on the geek side. Until then, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, behave. But if you can't behave, well, at least be good at it.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.